Hello, my name is Kainson Munonye, and in this presentation we are going to examine the final process under the Project Procurement Management knowledge area. We are going to be looking at close procurement. Close procurement is the process of completing each procurement, and the key benefits of this process is that it documents agreements and related documentation for future reference. So what we are saying here is, in close procurement, you are completing everything about each of the procurements. Remember that there might be a number of procurement contracts running in parallel for a single project. So in close procurement, you are completing each procurement, okay? And this is necessary before the project closure. But let's learn a little more. The close procurement process involves finalizing open claims, updating records to reflect final results, and archiving such information for future use. Close procurement addresses each contract applicable to the project or a project phase. A multi-phase project, the term of a contract may only be applicable to a given phase of the project. And in these cases, when there are multiple phases in a project, the close procurement process closes the procurements applicable to that phase of the project. Okay, so we have that after closure, unresolved claims may be subject to litigation. Okay, so the procurement can be closed and litigation might continue after then if there are unresolved claims that could not be handled by alternative dispute resolution process. The contract terms and conditions can prescribe specific procedures for agreements for agreement closure. The close procurement process supports the close project or phase process by ensuring contractual agreements are completed and terminated. Early termination of a contract is a special case of procurement closure that can result from a mutual agreement by both parties, from the defaults of one party, or from convenience of the buyer if provided for in the contract. So also note that the rights and responsibilities of the parties in the event of early termination are contained in the terminations clause of the contract, and based upon these terms, the buyer may have the right to terminate the whole contract or portion of the contract at any time. However, based upon those contract terms and conditions, the buyer may have to compensate the seller for seller's preparations and for any completed and accepted work related to the terminated parts of the contract. Let's now look at the ITTOs of close procurement. There are a few of them. The inputs are procurement management plan and procurement documents. Tools and techniques are 3: procurement audits, procurement negotiations, records management system. The outputs will be closed procurement and organizational process asset updates. Let's take a look at each of them to see how they apply to the closed procurement process. The project management plan, well, we are talking about not the project management plan as the input, but the procurement. Oh, sorry, it's correct. Is a project management plan. There's a project management plan. That's the input and the procurement document. So if we go back, we should be having the project. Sorry, let's get it right. I want to say the project, not procurement management plan. So let's remove. I will just say J. The project management plan. Alright, why do we need the project management plan? Because this contains the procurement management plan. Remember that the project management plan is a combination of all the subsidiary plans from all the knowledge areas, as well as the baselines, like the schedule baseline, cost and scope baselines. All of them are contained in the project management plan, as well as the procurement management plan. It provides details on how the closed procurement process will be carried out. We also need procurement documents. To close a contract, all procurement documentation is collected, indexed, and filed. Information on contract schedule, scope, quality, and cost performance, along with all contract change documentation, payment records, and inspection results are cataloged. This information can be used for lessons learned information and as a basis for evaluating contractors for future contracts. Tools and techniques include procurement audits. Remember, audit is a structured review of the procurement process originating from the planned procurement management process through the controlled procurement. The objective of procurement audit is to identify successes and failures that warrant recognition in the preparation or administration of other procurement contracts on the project or on other projects within the performing organization. Another important tool and technique is the procurement negotiations. In all procurement relationships, the final equitable settlement of all outstanding issues, claims, and disputes by negotiation is the primary goal. So don't quickly go to get an attorney to say, okay, this seller did not provide this, I want you to charge him to court. You don't quickly do that. You try to negotiate first. If there's no settlement possible from that, then try to use some alternative dispute resolution method. This might include mediation or arbitration when necessary. When everything fails, that is when all else fails, litigation, this is a very, very final result. Most times this is not desirable. So as a competent, as a professional in project management, you always try to avoid litigation as much as possible. Another tool and techniques is records management system. This is used by the project manager to manage contract and procurement documentations and records. The contract document and correspondence are achieved through the records management system as part of the closed procurement process. So we have a system to manage our records, to file procurement documents so that it can be used later, provide an archive that you can easily retrieve relevant information when necessary about this procurement. Let's now look at the two outputs, and one of them is closed procurement. This is an important output. The buyer usually, through its authorized procurement administrator, provides the seller with formal written notice that the contract has been completed. Okay, so the buyer or the performing organization provides the documents in writing telling the seller, well, I accept your deliverables, everything is okay, everything is fine, I'll pay you everything, and this procurement is closed and accepted. Good luck. That's how it goes. Alright, requirements for formal procurement closure are usually defined in terms and conditions of the contract and are included in the procurement management plan. So then we have organizational process aspect updates. For instance, we have the procurement file maintained by the performing organization, might be updated, deliverable acceptance might also be updated, as well as lessons learned documentations might be updated. This can be maintained as historical information. It gives insight on relevant improvement and recommended changes, recommended improvements on the process, and these are maintained for future projects and procurement. This is how we wrap it up on closed procurement project or process, and also this is where we come to an end of the project procurement management knowledge area. I'd like to thank you very much for joining me, and as usual I'm taking you back to the ITTOS page so that you spend some time to get used to these inputs, tools and techniques and output. Thanks once again for joining me, and please join me in my next presentation as we are going to begin a brand new knowledge area, and that is project stakeholder management.